why your mind starts racing at 3 a.m. is not what you think. Because if you're waking up in the middle of the night and your brain suddenly feels wide awake, heart calm, body tired, but your thoughts won't stop, you're not just overthinking. And what's really happening in your brain at that exact moment is the reason you can't fall back asleep no matter how tired you are. Some people experience this once in a while, others every single night, especially after 40, and it doesn't happen randomly. What sleep science is beginning to reveal about this pattern changes everything about how you should approach sleep. Because this isn't just about insomnia or a restless mind at night. There's a hidden process activating in your brain at a very specific time, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'm Dr. Sarah, a sleep medicine specialist with a background in psychiatry, and over the years I've worked closely with thousands of individuals who wake up at 3 a.m. with their mind suddenly racing and find themselves unable to sleep through the night again, no matter how physically tired they feel or how much they try to relax their thoughts. If that sounds familiar to you, take a moment to like this video and follow this channel, because what you're about to understand is something most people go years without realizing, and it can completely change the way you approach your sleep, starting as early as tonight. Many of the people I've worked with, especially those struggling with insomnia after 40, describe a very similar and very specific experience. They feel exhausted throughout the entire day, mentally drained and physically depleted, and by the time they go to bed, they expect sleep to come naturally and deeply. And sometimes it does, at least for the first part of the night. They fall asleep without much difficulty, their body begins to relax, their breathing slows down, and everything seems normal, until something subtle begins to shift internally. Then, without warning, they wake up in the middle of the night, often around 3 a.m., with no external reason or clear trigger, no noise, no discomfort, no interruption, just a sudden internal activation that feels like their brain has switched back on. And what they tell me next is almost always the same sentence: "I'm completely exhausted, but my mind just won't shut off." And what they don't realize in that moment is that this isn't random, and it's not a failure of the mind. Because what's actually happening inside the brain in that exact moment of waking follows a very specific biological pattern, one that most people have never been taught to recognize. And once that pattern begins, it quietly prevents the brain from returning to deep sleep for a reason that is only now being fully understood. You go to bed already feeling tired, not just physically, but mentally drained from the entire day. Your body is asking for rest, your eyes feel heavy, and all you want is to finally sleep through the night. You lie down expecting your mind to slow down, and sometimes it actually does. You begin to drift, your thoughts become softer, your body starts to relax, and for a brief moment, it feels like sleep is finally happening. But then something shifts, subtly at first, almost unnoticeable, until suddenly you wake up, not fully alert, but not fully asleep either. And when you check the time, it's almost always the same window, around 3 a.m., right in the middle of the night, when your body should be in its deepest rest, but instead your mind starts racing. Thoughts begin looping without control. One leads to another and then another. Your body stays still, your eyes may even remain closed, but your brain won't shut off. It feels active, engaged, awake. You try to go back to sleep, you adjust your position, you breathe slower, you tell yourself to relax, but something inside you stays on, like a quiet internal alert that won't fully turn off, no matter how still you remain. And even if you eventually fall asleep again, it doesn't feel the same. The sleep is lighter, more fragile, easier to break. And when morning comes, you wake up tired, like your brain never fully restored itself. This doesn't feel like normal insomnia. It feels more specific, more patterned, like something is interrupting your ability to stay asleep at the exact same point in the night, and it keeps happening for a reason you haven't seen yet. Most people believe this is happening because of stress or because of bad sleep habits or something they are doing wrong at night. They assume it's too much thinking or too much screen time or not following the perfect routine, and that belief quietly shapes everything they try next. So they start adjusting behaviors. They change what they eat. They improve their sleep environment. They try to relax more before bed. They follow every recommendation they can find. And for a short time, it may even seem like it's helping. But then the same pattern returns. They still wake up in the middle of the night, their mind still becomes active, and they still struggle to fall back asleep even when everything else looks right. And that's where confusion starts to grow because it stops making logical sense. This is the moment most people overlook because the problem isn't just what you're doing, it's what your brain is detecting deep beneath your awareness in a way that doesn't depend on conscious thought or visible behavior. And once that detection happens, everything begins to shift internally. Because at around 3 a.m., your brain enters a very sensitive window where small internal signals can be interpreted differently, not as neutral, but as something that requires attention, even if there is no real danger present. And when that interpretation changes, your brain doesn't stay in rest mode. It begins to shift, subtly moving toward a form of alertness, not enough to fully wake your body, but enough to interrupt deeper sleep and change the direction of your night. Once that shift begins, sleep is no longer the brain's priority. Something else takes over, something more primitive, more protective, and more automatic. And until you understand what that is, this pattern tends to repeat itself night after night. Sleep science has identified a very specific internal state known as the Neural Sleep Inhibition Response, a biological pattern that occurs inside the brain when the systems responsible for deep sleep become partially suppressed during the night without fully waking the body and without the person understanding why it is happening. This is not a label created for explanation. It reflects a measurable shift in brain behavior, where the mind transitions out of full sleep mode and into a subtle form of brain alert mode while the body remains physically at rest, creating a disconnect between what you feel physically and what your brain is actually doing. In this state, you are not fully awake, but you are no longer in deep restorative sleep. Your awareness increases slightly, your thoughts become more accessible, and your brain begins to process information again, even though there is no real need for activity and no external trigger to justify that shift. At a physiological level, cortisol can begin to rise earlier than its natural rhythm, sending activation signals through the system. The nervous system becomes more reactive and sensitive, responding faster to even subtle internal changes, and the circadian rhythm begins to lose its stability right at the point where it should be most regulated. This combination creates a very precise internal environment where the brain interprets the night differently, not as a period of complete shutdown, but as a state that requires a level of alertness. Even if that alertness is low and controlled, it is enough to interfere with the natural sleep cycle and prevent deeper stages from fully activating. And when the neural sleep inhibition response takes hold, your brain quietly shifts its priority away from maintaining deep sleep and toward maintaining awareness, which is why you wake up at 3 a.m., feel your mind starting to race and struggle to fall back asleep, even though your body is still completely exhausted. Here's what most people don't realize. Sleep is not something that happens automatically just because your body feels tired or because your mind wants to rest. It is a controlled biological process that depends on very specific internal signals being aligned inside your brain. Your brain does not allow sleep just because you are exhausted. It allows sleep when it determines that it is safe enough to lower vigilance, to deactivate alert systems, and to fully transition into deep restorative states. This transition is regulated by the nervous system, by your circadian rhythm, and by the balance between melatonin and cortisol, all working together to create a stable internal environment where deep sleep can actually occur. But during the neural sleep inhibition response, this balance begins to shift, often without you realizing it. Your brain stops moving toward full shutdown and instead maintains a level of internal alertness, subtle but persistent, as if something still needs attention. This is why the experience feels so precise. You wake up at 3 a.m., not fully awake, but no longer deeply asleep. Your awareness increases, your thoughts begin to form, and your brain starts to engage again. At that point, your body may remain completely still, your breathing may stay slow, your eyes may remain closed, but internally, your brain is no longer in sleep mode. It is operating in a controlled state of alertness that prevents deeper rest from returning. This is where most people get it wrong. They believe the problem is their thoughts, that they are overthinking, or that their mind is too active. But the thoughts are not the cause. They are the result of a brain that has already shifted into alert mode. Because once this state begins, your brain actively resists full shutdown. It keeps a low-level activation running, making it difficult to fall back asleep, and even harder to stay asleep through the night. And what actually triggers this shift is something most people have never been taught to recognize. This pattern becomes more common after 40, not because something is broken inside you, and not because your body is failing, but because your biology naturally begins to shift in ways that most people are never taught to recognize, especially when it comes to how the brain manages sleep and how it responds to internal signals during the night. As you move past 40, your brain becomes more sensitive to cortisol fluctuations. Even small changes in timing or slight elevations during the night can have a stronger effect than before, activating alert pathways more easily and making it harder for the brain to remain in deep sleep during the most critical hours of the night. At the same time, your circadian rhythm becomes more delicate, less rigid than it was in earlier years, meaning it can be disrupted more easily by stress, light exposure, irregular schedules, or even subtle internal imbalances that previously would not have affected your sleep at all. Your nervous system also changes. It becomes more reactive at night, more responsive to internal cues, even when those signals are weak or harmless, which means the threshold for activating alertness becomes lower than it used to be, especially during the early morning window. This creates a condition where even minor internal signals, something as subtle as a slight cortisol rise or a small shift in internal rhythm, can activate brain alert mode without any external trigger and without you consciously understanding why it happened. And once this activation begins, your brain no longer prioritizes deep sleep. It shifts into a protective state, keeping you in a lighter stage of rest, where awareness is partially maintained, making it much harder to stay asleep, even if your body is still deeply tired. This is why so many people after 40 begin to notice the same pattern repeating, waking up at 3 a.m., feeling mentally alert, struggling to fall back asleep, and waking up in the morning feeling unrefreshed even after spending enough time in bed. But what makes this even more important to understand is that this shift doesn't happen randomly. It follows a very specific internal timing, and once you see what your brain is responding to in that exact window of the night, the entire pattern starts to make a different kind of sense. Over time, this does not stay as an isolated event. It begins to form a consistent internal pattern, one that repeats night after night, gradually shaping how your brain experiences sleep and how your body responds the next day. Even if you don't immediately connect the two, the accumulation starts to become undeniable. sleep becomes fragmented, not always fully interrupted, but no longer deep and continuous. Your brain moves in and out of lighter stages, never fully settling into restoration, and even when you stay in bed for hours, the quality of that sleep begins to decline. This leads to a very specific kind of fatigue, not just physical tiredness, but mental exhaustion that builds over time. Difficulty focusing, slower thinking, reduced clarity, and a constant sense that your energy is never fully restored. Mornings begin to feel different. You wake up without that sense of reset. Your body may have rested, but your brain feels like it never fully shut down. There is a lingering heaviness, a subtle mental fog, and a quiet awareness that something is off. At this point, many people turn inward. They begin to blame themselves. They assume it must be anxiety or stress or something they are doing wrong. They start questioning their discipline and their ability to control their own mind. But this is where a critical misunderstanding happens, because this pattern is not a personal failure, it is not a lack of effort, and it is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a reflection of how your brain is responding to signals it interprets as important during the night. In fact, your brain is not working against you. It is trying to protect you. It is maintaining a level of alertness because it believes it needs to, even if that belief is misplaced and even if there is no real danger present. The real problem is not that your brain is reacting, it's that it is reacting at the wrong time, during the exact window when it should be allowing full restoration. And until you understand what is driving that mistimed response, this pattern tends to continue without a clear resolution. So the goal is not to force sleep, and it's not about trying to shut your brain down at night or suppress your thoughts at night, because that approach often creates more resistance and more internal tension, making the problem feel even stronger instead of actually resolving what's underneath. The real objective is something very different. It is to help your brain exit the neural sleep inhibition response by changing the internal conditions that are keeping it active at night, so that it no longer feels the need to maintain that subtle state of alertness. This means working with your biology, not against it, supporting the systems that regulate sleep instead of overriding them, and gradually guiding your brain back into a state where deep rest becomes possible again. At a physiological level, this involves stabilizing cortisol patterns at night so that activation signals don't appear too early, supporting the nervous system so it becomes less reactive to internal cues, and restoring the circadian rhythm so your internal timing becomes predictable again. It also means reactivating what can be called the natural sleep switch, a state where the brain feels safe enough to fully disengage from alertness and allow deeper sleep cycles to take over, without interruption and without that constant background awareness. When these elements begin to realign, something subtle but powerful starts to happen. Your brain stops resisting sleep. It no longer holds on to that partial alertness and instead begins to follow its natural progression into deeper rest, the way it was designed to do. And as this shift occurs, you don't need to force anything. Sleep begins to feel more natural again. You start to sleep through the night, wake up less frequently, and experience a more consistent sense of restoration without that mental exhaustion in the morning. This is the point where many people start looking for safe and structured ways to support this internal process, often guided by sleep science and doctor-approved approaches, including natural nighttime support options that are designed to work with the brain and are available in the first pinned comment. If your mind starts racing at 3 a.m., it is not something random, it is not something unpredictable, and it is not something your brain is doing without reason, even if it feels confusing in the moment. There is a clear internal pattern behind it, one that follows a specific biological logic. It is also not just stress, and it is not simply the result of your thoughts or something you failed to control before going to bed, because many people experiencing this pattern are doing everything right and still waking up in the middle of the night with the same mental activation. And most importantly, this is not your fault. It is not a lack of discipline, it is not a personal weakness, and it is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is your brain responding to internal signals in a way that is designed to protect you. What may be happening instead is that your brain is entering a neural sleep inhibition response, a state where it maintains partial alertness during a time when it should be allowing full rest. And that single shift changes everything about how your sleep unfolds. Because when the right signals are restored, when cortisol stabilizes at the correct time, when the nervous system becomes less reactive to internal cues, and when your circadian rhythm regains consistency, your brain no longer needs to stay on alert, and sleep becomes possible again in a natural way. Not forced, not artificial, but aligned with how your biology is designed to function. Which is why so many people begin to notice fewer awakenings, deeper sleep cycles, and a more restored feeling in the morning once those internal conditions begin to change. But there is one detail that makes this pattern even more precise and far more predictable than most people realize, because this brain alert mode tends to activate within a very specific time window, almost like a biological checkpoint during the night. In the next video, I'm going to show you exactly why this activation tends to happen between 3 a.m. and 3:30 a.m. and what that reveals about your cortisol rhythm. Because once you truly understand that mechanism, staying asleep all night starts to make a completely different kind of sense.